Okay, hey guys, girls. Any teenagers that are around, let's say 12 to 16? Yeah. I got this awesome book long time ago when I was about 16. And it just, they really helped me during middle school and high school. Um, it's called Diary of a Teenage Girl. This one's about Caitlin. There's other ones. There's Diary of a Teenage Girl about Kim, and then there's one about Caitlin. And I can't really explain it, but on the back it explains the book really good. So I'm gonna read that. Follow Caitlin O'Connor, a girl much like yourself, as she makes her way from New Year's to the first day of summer, surviving a challenging home life, changing friends, school pressures, an identity crisis, and the uncertainties of true love. You'll cry with Caitlin as she experiences heartache and cheer for her as she encounters a new reality in her life: God. See how rejection by one group can incredibly sometimes lead you to discover who you really are. And if you're sold on that, then you can stop this video. But I thought I can just read you her first diary entry. And this is like not a true story, but a lot of the things that happen in here do actually happen in real life. So that's what caught me, what she was going through was like helping me with what I was going through. So, but here you go. Monday, January 1st, a rather uneventful new year. So far, anyway. I heard somewhere that when you write in a diary, you should pretend that you're writing a letter to a really good friend, someone you trust completely and you know will never laugh at you. So that's what I'm telling myself, because to tell the truth, I feel kind of silly writing about my life in this dorky little book. And it's funny because I've actually had this diary for several years now, and suddenly it hits me, like, hey, I'm 16. According to some people, this should be one of the most memorable eras of my whole life. Well, I'm not too sure I even want to remember everything about being 16. But on the other hand, things seem to be looking up lately, and it might actually be fun to track how the rest of my junior year goes. Especially considering the first few months have been pretty dull so far. But first of all, let me say this. Being 16 is not really that sweet. And furthermore, it's not terribly exciting either. At least not for me. Although I'm certain that some kids my age are having a really great time. Take last night, for instance. I wanted to go to a New Year's Eve party with my friend Beanie Jacobs. But do you think I got to go? Yeah, right. To protest, I stayed up in my room most of the night, until my mom literally begged me, using her famous "it's a holiday guilt trip" combined with the promise of double Dutch brownies, to come join the family. And then we watched this really lame video about a bunch of stupid kids who got lost in the woods. And then when we stayed up until midnight and watched our neighbors shooting off what are supposed to be illegal fireworks. Well, big whoopee-doo. But back to being 16 and how it's not so sweet. What some people don't realize is that 16 comes with its own set of problems, like taking drivings, for instance. I was all excited when I got my license the end of last summer, on my birthday no less, and I thought for sure my parents would want to get me a car now. Naturally, I didn't expect a new car, although I wouldn't mind having one of those cool VW bugs with the little flower vases on the dashboard, maybe in yellow or blue. But I would have settled for almost any old thing with four wheels as long as it ran decently. But do you think I could get them to spring for a car? Even though I patiently explained how they'd never have to haul me around everywhere, and how I would even give my little brother rides to his stupid ball games, not to mention run an endless amount of errands for them. Well, think again. You don't want to deal with that kind of responsibility yet, Caitlin Renee. Mommy says ever so sweetly. I'm pretty sure she even patted me on the head. Honestly, sometimes my parents treat me like I'm still 10 years old, and of course they say it's because they love me, but I think the truth is they don't really trust me. They probably think if they give me just the tiniest taste of freedom that I'll run hog wild, get a tattoo, and start smoking dope or something equally disgusting. Why can't they believe in me? Just a little? I mean, I've never given them a single reason not to trust me. At least nothing of any real significance. It's just not fair. About the only thing they willingly let me do is to go to our church's high school youth group functions. And man, let me tell you, there are some kids in there who are pretty bad news. Not exactly a great influence, as my dad likes to call any teenage kid he doesn't quite get. Take my best friend Beanie, for instance, but I'll get to her later. Anyway, the thing is, I don't even tell my parents about the kids in youth group who smoke and drink and God only knows what else, and I'd never get to go anywhere until I turned 21. Now I'll try to say something nice about my parents, just in case they're reading this. And if they are, I will take back every single word of it and never ever speak to the old snoops again. Okay, for the most part, my parents are pretty cool. And now the end of and not the kind of people to read other people's diaries. For one thing, they've managed to stay married to each other for almost 20 years. A pretty big deal when everyone else's parents seems to be splitting up. And my dad has a pretty interesting job at an advertising firm downtown, while my mom teaches first grade. I guess I could have done worse as far as parents go. Like my best friend, Beanie Jacobs, her dad was a cocaine addict who left her mom with nothing but overdue bills when Beanie was still in diapers. On top of that, her mom's kind of freaky and irresponsible, but plus she drinks too much and forgets to pay her bills. I know she got married really young, but it's kind of like she never grew up. But she actually makes Beanie act like the parent most of the time, which is pretty weird, if you ask me. Of course, the one good thing about that whole Beanie situation is that she gets to do whatever she wants, whenever she wants. And I kind of envy that. Oh, sure, I know it has its downside too. Let me tell you, Lynn Jacobs, Beanie's mom, can be pretty scary sometimes, and I've seen her tear into Beanie like she's a dog or something, less than a human. As a consequence, I tried never to get on that woman's bad side, which lately seems to be every side. Anyway, Beanie's been my best friend since 6th grade, when we both discovered we were totally hopeless on the violin. I could tell right off she was really smart, and she had this really dry sense of humor. Plus, I liked that she wasn't afraid to speak up and say how she felt, at least around anyone but her mom. Now, I'll be the first to admit that Beanie Baby, she goes absolutely nuts when I call her that, which I rarely do, except if I'm ticked at her about something. Tends to dress well, shall I say, outlandishly. I've been reading Jane Austen books lately, and sometimes I wish we still talked like that. But back to Beanie and how she has this rather interesting sense of style. You see, her mom never gives her any money for clothes, so she has to come up with all these creative ways of dressing, and she actually shops at Goodwill. And then she even sews some of her weird stuff together. And sometimes she even dyes her hair some pretty wild colors like magenta or midnight blue. Normally it's almost black and very curly, which she says is because her dad was Jewish, although she doesn't practice his religion. But Beanie's pretty fun to hang with, and I'm glad she's my friend. My parents didn't like her at all at first, but then I got her going to youth group with me, and now they think she's okay but strange, and I don't think they quite trust her. Beanie's actually very pretty, in a sultry kind of way. And one time my mom, trying to be helpful, wanted to give her a complete makeover, but that's another story. Let's just suffice it to say that when Mom was done, Beanie looked like a Mary Kay poster child. Poor Beanie. Well, I guess that's enough for one night, so now you can see how my life is just so terribly exciting. Like, wow, maybe they'll make this book into a movie someday. Not. But that is the first entry, and it's just a really good book, and I just thought maybe I could just like introduce this book to you and that little expert, whatever you want to call it, first diary entry that you might want to get the book, or you could even borrow it from me because I've already read it. But just let me know, and if you have any other questions, shoot me a message or text me or anything. But yeah, it's awesome.